Chapter 13, on the top in most Tanyas it's Yud Ches, and the bottom in most Tanyas it's 54. Okay, story up to now. Now the Rebbe explains the Beinani. Okay, he says a Beinani at the time of davening puts his Yetzer Hara to sleep. A Beinani has a Yetzer Hara that wants him to sin and tries to convince him to sin. The Beinani doesn't sin, not in thought, not in speech, not in action. Because if somebody willingly thinks an evil thought, they're called a Rasha at that time. A Beinani is never called a Rasha. Second, a thought of jealousy, hatred comes in, they right away get rid of it. And the last thing he said, not only that, they learn like from Yosef and the brothers, not only does he take revenge, but he even gives people that don't deserve it, he gives them good. So that's the Beinani. Okay? Never sins, thought, speech, or action. But he has a very powerful Yetzer Hara. So in Perek Yud Gimel, now the Rebbe is explaining a Gemara that he brought down on the first page of Tanya. Now we can understand what the Gemara says. The Gemara on the first page of Tanya, the Rebbe quoted the Gemara, it says like this: Tzaddikim are judged by their Yetzer Tov, Rishoyim are judged by the Yetzer Hara, and Beinanim zeh v'zeh sheiftam. The Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara both judge the person. And the Rebbe says, now we can understand what the Gemara says. Beinanim zeh v'zeh sheiftam, both judge him, meaning Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara. And the Gemara says, the Gemara in Brachos learned it out from a pasuk. Because it says in the pasuk, Ki yamed lemin evyin, Hashem stands on the right side of the poor one, meaning the person, leheshia mishefte nafshe, to save him from the judges of his soul. That means the pasuk is saying the person has two judges, and Hashem, as we'll soon learn, saves the Beinani from the judges. What does that mean? The Rebbe says the Gemara doesn't say zeh v'zeh moishlim chas v'sholom, both control him. The Gemara says both judge him by the Beinani. The Gemara doesn't say both control him, because the Beinani is never controlled by the Yetzer Hara. Ki kishayesh eza shlitu memshala, because anytime there is dictatorship or leadership or control, the Yetzer Hara be'ir ktana. Anytime there's control over the Yetzer Hara in the small city, which is the body, afilu lefi shah kala, even for a split second, nikra rasha basic shah. He's a rasha. So the Gemara can't say the Beinani is governed by the Yetzer Hara, because he's never governed by the Yetzer Hara. And therefore you can't say he's governed by both. So what is it? There's a judge. There's two judges. What does it mean, a judge? Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer Eina Rak al Derech Mashal. It's like an analogy of Shefet V'dayin, like a judge in a court case. Ha'emer Daite B'mishpat. There's three judges in a court. Judge A says his opinion. This is what I think the verdict should be. Afo PK, nevertheless, yeah, he says his opinion. But Yachalias, it's possible, that the law might not be like that one judge. Why? Because there's a contrary judge. There's a judge that disagrees with him. Judge A says guilty, Judge B says innocent. So what do you do then? You need to make a compromise between them. And therefore, the arbitrate, and the law is like the arbitrator. When two people argue, you go to the arbitrator. Why do you have three judges in a court? One says one opinion, another one says his opinion, and then you have the third opinion. That's the majority opinion. So he says like this. The Yetzer Hara he's a judge. He comes to the city, the person, and he gives his opinion. You should sin. You should give in to your temptations. Ume'alef, from the heart, Oila Lameach goes up to the brain, like the Alter Rebbe said before. laharir bay, to think about it. In other words, the Yetzer Hara gives its opinion in the body. You should sin. But miyad chelik olav hashefet hasheni. But immediately the second judge, the nefesh sholakis shebemayach hamispachit b'choli almoni, that starts in the brain and goes down to the heart. Makim mishkan hayetzetayv. It says his opinion. So in other words, what happens by the Beinani? So the Gemara says by a Beinani, there's a judge debate. One judge says his opinion. The other judge says his opinion. And now you go to the third opinion to find out what I should do. So what is it? Halacha kedivrei hamachiria. Who is the helper? HaKadosh Baruch Hu ha'ezrei la'yetzer tov. Hashem who helps the Yetzer Tov overcome the Yetzer Hara. So therefore he says, Kamay Merazal, like the Gemara says, the Gemara says like this. There's a pasuk, Tzeifer Rasha Latzadik v'chafetz la'abisei. There's a pasuk that says the tzaddik, the Rasha looks out for the tzaddik and wants to kill him. And then the pasuk continues in Tehillim. Hashem lo yazvenu b'yodi. Hashem doesn't let him kill him. What does this mean? Dr. Rebbe is explaining over here. The Yetzer Hara wants to spiritually kill the Jew. Wants to get him to sin. Sin is spiritual death. The Yetzer Tov, the Nefesh Sholakis, is fighting it. So there's a battle going on. So what does he do? What does the Beinani do? The Beinani follows the arbitrator, who is Hashem, that helps the Yetzer Tov. Kamay Merazal, like the Gemara says, Ilmale HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ezrei. If Hashem wouldn't help the Yetzer Tov, the Nefesh Sholakis, and Yachole, he would not be able to overcome the Nefesh Habamis. What is the help that Hashem gives him? It's a godly inspiration, a godly revelation to the Yetzer Tov, to the godly soul. The Yisrain, the Shlita, that it should have the advantage and the control al sichlis hachsil, on the foolishness of the fool, which means the Yetzer Hara, the advantage of light over darkness. Now, the Rebbe is saying here a very interesting thing. The Gemara says the Beinani has two judges, but that doesn't mean the halacha is like either of them. The halacha is like the third judge. Who is the third judge over here? The arbitrator. Hashem, who helps the Nefesh Sholakis. And the Gemara says, if Hashem wouldn't help the Nefesh Sholakis, he would not be able to overcome the Nefesh Habamis. He would cause him to sin. Because, why? Because an animal is stronger than a person. If there's a fight between an animal and a person, the animal usually wins. And therefore, the Nefesh Sholakis is fighting the darkness and the evil of the Nefesh Habamis. As we all know, when a person's not a Beinani, is because the Nefesh Habamis to over control the body. But the Rebbe here is saying an interesting point, and the Rebbe has a very interesting note over here that the Rebbe explains. It's in Lessons of Tanya, because the Rebbe used to have a lot of very interesting footnotes that they said on the radio when they would give this the Tanya program every Saturday night. Here the Rebbe is saying in Perek Yud Gimel that the only way a Beinani could win the battle is with Hashem's help. Without Hashem's help, he would not be able to overcome the Nefesh Habamis. That's what the Rebbe says in Perek Yud Gimel. So the Rebbe asks, our Rebbe asks, 1 minute. In Perek Yud Beis, a perek ago, a few pages ago, the Rebbe says, what's the key to the Beinani? That the mind controls the heart. The Rebbe in Perek Yud Beis says clearly, why doesn't the Beinani sin? Not because Hashem helps him. He could do it on his own. Because the mind controls the heart. And if the mind understands it's wrong, even though the heart wants to do it, now the Rebbe explained the key to a Beinani in the previous chapter, Perek Yud Beis. Now the Rebbe explains because the Nefesh Mayach Shalat Alev, the mind where the Nefesh Lakis is dwelling, versus the Yetzer Hara in the heart, the mind by human being, by Teva Tuldasi, the birth. By nature, a person controls, the mind controls the heart.
So I can't do it.
So why over here does the Alter Rebbe say that without the help of Hashem, he wouldn't be able to overcome it? And the Rebbe explains as follows. In Perek Yud Beis, the Alter Rebbe is speaking about when there's an intellectual debate. When there's a debate, should I do it, shouldn't I do it? So then but sometimes there's a fight between the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara that's not in any way intellectual. And the Alter Rebbe says like this. I'm going to read it the words because the Alter Rebbe is very clear. The Alter Rebbe is in Perek Yud Beis. The Rebbe writes like this. The Alter Rebbe speaks of the Seder Beinani after prayer. That's what he spoke about in Perek Yud Beis. When the effect of his meditation and godliness during prayer still lingers in his mind. In Perek Yud Beis, the Alter Rebbe said because the Beinani davened, and at that time he put his Yetzer Hara to sleep, and he was meditating into the greatness of Hashem. So the Rebbe writes, at such time, his mind is suffused with godliness to the point where the animal soul cannot so much as voice an opinion there. But in this Perek, the Rebbe writes, the divine assistance is necessary whenever the conflict between the two souls does not involve a struggle of the mind versus heart. When the divine soul wishes to prevent sinful thoughts from arising in the mind, so there's no battle of the mind then. And two, when the emotive faculties, meaning the midas of the divine soul, seek to overpower those of the animal soul without contemplation and meditation. In other words, Alter Rebbe is explaining over here, our Rebbe is explaining over here, what Alter Rebbe means is when there's a battle of intellect, meaning by davening, when the mind of the Beinani is powerful because he just meditated in the greatness of Hashem, then the Yetzer Hara can't even voice an opinion. The second he voices an opinion, he kills it. The mind controls the heart. But there comes times when the mind is not controlling the heart because there's no mind here. We're talking about not getting evil thought enters the person's mind. There's no meditation going on for the mind to control the heart. Or it's an emotional thing that's no intellect involved. Over there, the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Yud Gimel, then you need the help of Hashem. What is the help of Hashem? Hashem gives a power to the neshama. Hashem gives a little bit of light that dispels the darkness of the Yetzer Hara. And he says, but, continue back in Tanya, but because the evil of the Beinani, the Yetzer Hara, is as strong as it was from birth, and soon the Alter Rebbe is going to say it becomes even stronger, and it still desires all desires of this world. It's never nullified. The Yetzer Hara of a Beinani is never nullified compared to the good. And the Yetzer Hara is never budged and moved from its place. The Yetzer Hara is there in its full glory and strength. But, so why is he a Beinani? The Yetzer Hara, who's very powerful where it is, but he doesn't have the ability to spread itself out, to control Beibadi Aguf into the limbs of the person. Why? Like he just said, Hashem stands on the right side, and helps and gives power to the Nefesh Elokis. As in English, the expression is, God helps those who help themselves. God helps those who help themselves. When Hashem sees that a Beinani doesn't want to sin, But the Yetzer Hara is very, very powerful, as powerful as it was from birth. And again, soon Dr. Rebbe is going to say on the next page that it's even stronger because he ate more and he slept more and he did worldly things more. So the Yetzer Hara not only doesn't get weaker, ate by a Beinoni, he gets stronger. And therefore, Dr. Rebbe says, L'chein nikra kirasha. Therefore, the Beinoni is called kirasha, like a rasha. On the first page of Tanya, the opening phrase of Tanya, Dr. Rebbe says that even in the Gemara, you give the neshama the oath, you administer an oath to be a tzaddik and not to be a rasha. And then it says, from the Gemara, Dr. Rebbe quoted in the first page, even if everybody tells you you're a tzaddik, you should be in your own eyes like a rasha. So right away, Dr. Rebbe said, but in Pirkei Avos it says, don't be a rasha in your own eyes. It's a contradiction. And also, Dr. Rebbe asks, if you think you're no good, so that's not beneficial. Either you get depressed or you'll just give up. So now Dr. Rebbe says this is answering the contradiction. The Gemara says, even if everybody tells you you're a tzaddik, in your own eyes, you should feel ki rasha, like a rasha. What does like a rasha mean? A Beinoni. Why is a Beinoni called ki rasha? So again, we discussed this, but now here's the place where it needs to be discussed properly. In behavior, the Beinoni does not listen to the Yetzer Hara at all. In behavior, he's like a tzaddik. The only difference is a tzaddik despises evil and a Beinoni doesn't despise evil. But in practical observance of Torah mitzvahs, in thought, speech, and action, in that respect, a Beinoni is like the tzaddik. He never sins. Why is he kirasha? He's kirasha because in level, the rasha has a Yetzer Hara, the Beinoni has a Yetzer Hara, the tzaddik doesn't. So in essence, not in behavior, in essence, the Beinoni and rasha are similar. The Beinoni has a Yetzer Hara, the rasha has a Yetzer Hara. He's not similar to the tzaddik because the tzaddik doesn't have a Yetzer Hara and the Beinoni does have a Yetzer Hara. See, yes, in behavior, he's like the tzaddik, but in essence, his personality has a Yetzer Hara. And therefore, the Gemara says, Hayei beinecha kirash, meaning like this. You're a Beinoni, yet never sins thought, speech, and action. So the Gemara says, even if everybody tells you you're mamish a tzaddik, you're mamish a tzaddik. Gemara says, call it. Hayei beinecha kirash. In your own eyes, you should be like a rasha. Why? You should think you're a Beinoni. And he says, even if everybody tells you you're a tzaddik, because in behavior you're mamish like a tzaddik, you shouldn't think you're rasha. You should think yourself as a Beinoni. And don't believe, and this is where humility fits in, by the way. Don't believe the world that tells you that you're a tzaddik. You're such a tzaddik, Beinoni. They're talking to the Beinoni. You're such a tzaddik. Your evil is subdued. Your evil is bottled to the good. That's the level of a tzaddik. No, he says, you should think. That the essence of the evil, you should think in your mind that it's still there. And by the way, when Dr. Rebbe in the next few pages is going to explain a very interesting thing. In the next page, Dr. Rebbe, beginning of Tanya, brought down the Gemara that the Gemara says tzaddikim are judged by the Yetzer Tov, tzaddik Rishon, and then Rabbah comes along and says, "Kagoin ano beinani, I'm a beinani." So the Alter Rebbe said, Abaye said to him, right? There's a Gemara, but the Alter Rebbe calls in the first page of Tanya. Abaye said to him, "Right, sir, excuse me. There's no way you're because he says you're not going to let everybody live. If you Rabbah was the tzaddik of the generation, you Rabbah, by the way, he died when he was 40. Rabbah was the tzaddik of his generation. If you're a Beinani, what are we? We're all Rishoyim. Secondly, like we learned on the first page, every generation needs a tzaddik, who's the foundation tzaddik. You say Deilam. If you're not a tzaddik, only a Beinani, who's the tzaddik? But now that based on this, we can explain what it means. Rabbah, remember we learned just before that when the Beinani davens, the Yetzer Hara goes to sleep. At the time of davening, in that respect, he's a little bit like a tzaddik because the Yetzer Hara goes to sleep. The problem is when the second he finishes davening, the Yetzer Hara wakes up. So now, Alter Rebbe is going to explain. That's where Rabbah said, "I'm a Beinani." What type of Beinani? Rabbah was really a tzaddik, tzaddik gomor of Tanya. But Rabbah, in his humility, maintained, "I am a Beinani whose Yetzer Hara is sleeping a whole day." But at any moment, Rabbah said, "I'm sure he could wake up." In other words, Rabbah's Yetzer Hara had no influence on him. It never pumped evil into him. Not in thought, not in speech. He despised evil. But Rabbah's humility was that he said, "1 minute, how do I know I'm a tzaddik? Maybe I'm a Beinani who's davening a whole day," meaning in the level of davening a whole day. The Yetzer Hara is sleeping. But he could wake up at any given moment, which obviously he didn't. But the Alter Rebbe says, that's why a person, the Beinani, needs to understand it never left. And the Yetzer Hara is very powerful. And the Alter Rebbe says 3 lines in the top of 36. Va'adrabah, not only did the Yetzer Hara not get weaker, nischazik yaser, it got stronger. The hemshech hazman, as time goes on, the Yetzer Hara gets stronger. Why? Because the Nefesh Abamis ate more and drank more. The Shadin Yani Elam Haza, and other worldly things also. So the Yetzer Hara by a Beinani is super powerful. But because he has it, therefore the Beinani is called Kirasha, like a Rasha. This is the uniqueness of a Beinani. Behavior, he's like a tzaddik. Level-wise, the Rasha has a Yetzer Hara, so does the Beinani. So he's like Kirasha, not a Rasha. And therefore, everything makes sense now. First of all, it's not a contradiction. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, "Al ti Rasha b'fnei atzmach," don't be a Rasha in your own eyes. That's a true statement. Because there's no benefit of thinking yourself as a Rasha. This that the Gemara says in the different Gemara, "Hey beinecha kirasha," it's not a Rasha, it's like a Beinani. And therefore, if you think you're a Beinani, you're not going to get depressed because you're not doing evil. They say, "Oh, I'm no good," and I'm no good. Later on in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe is going to ask a very simple question. What in the world? So basically, the uniqueness of a Beinani is he's going to fight and fight and fight and never get there and never win. He'll never kill it. Because the Alter Rebbe is going to explain in the next parak, you have to be born with the ability to be a tzaddik. What is the purpose of the Beinani? To fight and fight and fight and know I'll never win. And the Alter Rebbe says later on in Tanya a very profound concept. And he says Okay, I'm just going to say it because it's going to be a long while until we get there. But the Alter Rebbe quotes the pasuk that says that Yitzchak told Esav, Rivka told Yaakov, "Va'asei mat'amim," when Yitzchak wanted to give Esav the bracha. So he said, "Make for me delicacies. Make for me delicacies." So the question is, Yitzchak needed delicacies, plural. Yitzchak Avinu was a holy tzaddik, but he needed different types of ice creams and different types of chocolate and desserts. What is this expression, asei li matam, in plural? So Chassidus explains there's two different matamim. There's two different delicacies in life. There's a sweet delicacy, sweet food. And then there's, I always call it based on show things, hot sauce delicacies, sharp delicacies, bitter delicacies, or sharp delicacies. That's also delicate. People like spicy food. You have spicy food and you have sweet food. So normally sweet food seemingly tastes better. But there's an advantage of spicy food over sweet food. And that is, God forbid, if somebody faints, you don't give them sugar to smell. You give them something sharp to smell. Sharp revives the soul. And that's a delicacy. And Alter Rebbe explains later in Tanya that they're talking, in Yitzchak and Rivka, talking to Klal Yisrael. It's Hashem talking to the Jewish people. Asei li matamim. There's two types of delicacies Hashem says I like. I like the tzaddik delicacy, and I like the Beinani delicacy. The Beinani is sharp. It's fighting. It's constantly fighting with his Yetzer Hara. But Hashem says, in many respects, that's more tasty to me. It's more reviving to me than the sweetness of the tzaddik. So yes, can the Beinani win? No. Even though the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Vav, you can get the neshama of a tzaddik, whatever. I mean, in Perek Yud, you can get it in the neshama of a tzaddik, whatever, and it could become a little tzaddik. But the point is, the Beinani has to know this is what's causing a tremendous pleasure to Hashem. It's not about winning. It's about the battle. There's a famous thing I mentioned many times, and we'll finish with that. There's a scenario, a soldier was given commands by the doctor, by the general, and he didn't listen. And because of that, they won the war. Had he listened to the general's instructions, they would have lost the war or the battle. Because he didn't listen to the general, he did his own thing, they won the war. So now the shaila is, in halacha of military, what do you do to the soldier? Do you reward him or do you court-martial him? And the answer is you court-martial him. Why? The job of a soldier is not to win a battle. The role and job and mission of a soldier is to listen to commands. That's his mission. He is not supposed to win battles. That's the general's issue. The soldier, the foot soldier's mission in life is to listen to the orders of the general. It's only irrelevant if you win or not. The Beinani's mission in life is by the commanding officer Hashem to win and to fight. To fight. That's a tremendous pleasure to Hashem, and in many respects, we'll learn more when we get into that. Even greater than a tzaddik. A Beinani, in many respects, Chassidus explains, is even greater than a tzaddik, even though level-wise he's not. Okay, Mitzvah Shem, we'll see everybody Monday. Mitzvah Shem, hopefully 8:15, but if I'm 2 minutes late, just don't get nervous.